Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to See You on the Trail. My name is Hitch. I'm with See You on the Trail. As you know, next to me, I have Mr. Seth Brown. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. How's everybody going? We have a new guest with us once again.
Yeah, what do we got Mr. AJ Burns from the long-awaited Meru Safety podcast. What's going on, man?
Going pretty good. I'm sorry to keep you guys waiting. I had to get married and honeymoon and stuff like that.
You didn't
with the product
have
lunch.
to.
Well, you know, I'm pretty sure it was time. It
was
was time to
it?
get married. Yeah.
Now, we touched on this in at dinner. I don't know if you want to go into the same details, but it was a very interesting way y'all met, and I think is a sign of things to come for everybody as a whole of how everybody meets each other, and it's not a whole lot different than how Mr. Allen over here met his girlfriend, and it's kind of crazy that I have someone left and right of me that met their significant other.
Well, because you haven't left your first girlfriend ever. That's why.
That is very incorrect, and I really do not want to revisit my past as far as my dating life goes.
Well, I met Michelle on Bimbo. No, Bumble.
Bimbo?
Bumble. So, AJ, where'd you meet your current wife?
Oh, we met on Tinder. We'd both been stood up the night before. We were both like sour with the world and with all of what it's like to date.
This dating life sucks.
Yeah, and so and we were also like sick and tired of having to like sit and message people for days on end and wondering if it's going to turn into a date. And so we talked for like 20 minutes and then decided we were going to go get coffee, and within like an hour and a half of like matching on Tinder, we were on a date, and it was right at the beginning of right before COVID started in January in 2020, and we went through COVID together, so that gave us at least like 7 years of dating just off of one lockdown. And so then you know by the time we were through that, we got a house, and it was 3.5 years ago, and so now we're finally married. It wasn't anything I was worried about.
Well,
so.
we just bring this up because literally you got back from your honeymoon on Sunday, right?
Yes.
And this is Wednesday, so that's why we talk about it. But congratulations.
And I'm also hoping we can cut that clip and send it to Tinder and maybe get sponsored.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You know, we did actually send Tinder an invite to our wedding because we'd heard they'd send you a gift or something, but we didn't get anything. So if you guys can get something from it, we just at least need some kind of cut.
I've heard of people doing like sending invites to celebrities and royalty, and they'll get back like maybe a check or at least like a signed letter or something like that. It's a good idea, but I can only imagine just like anything once it gets out. Everybody tries to do it, and then you just get lost in the deck.
Yeah, no, somebody else spoiled it for me, so we didn't get any Tinder love, but at least I got
No,
the wife
you
out
did
of
get
it.
some Tinder
Yeah, no,
love.
I got the wife.
Yeah,
I'll take the wife
that's
over
good.
the Tinder
That's a
check.
gift. That's a gift, right?
Yes.
So let's go
that's
ahead and
what we're going to call it.
That's what we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty now and talk about. Let's start out. How old are you now?
I'm 27. I consistently have no idea how old I am. It's somewhere between 26 and 28. I'm pretty sure it's 27.
Well,
okay,
but my
so-
wife constantly corrects me on this because I don't know most of the time.
Well, also, as everybody can see that's watching it, but if you can't, your hair has a certain tint to it. So from what I understand, people with your hair color take souls, and so that changes your age because you don't age the same, right?
You know, ginger years and normal people years are quite different. I wish I had a soul, but it was just something that was missing at birth, and you get used to it.
You get rid of the soul and you put in gas motors, any kind of motor you got. So let's tell us how'd you get started in like four wheels? When did you get interested in it? And let's start from the beginning.
Or he started on two wheels, I found out earlier.
Okay.
Yeah,
2 wheels.
so 7 years, well, when I was 7 years old, I started racing motocross, and I traveled all over the country racing motorcycles and chasing their amateur national scene. And for the most part, I sucked. I was really bad for like 5 years. I would go, and there'd be like 80 kids at an amateur national, and I couldn't even make a 40-man main event. My dad used to take my lap times with a sundial, and it was just bad. But then all of a sudden things started clicking for me, and when I was like about 13, 14 years old, and all of a sudden it went from being the guy who was struggling to make main events to kind of being a contender. And so then I enjoyed about 3 or 4 years of success, and was making plans to go race Supercross. And actually that was one of the reasons I'm originally from Southern California, and I was trying to, I wanted to go to college and race Supercross at the same time. And so I had worked out a deal to come and go to OU, and then I was going to ride at Trey Kennard's house in Shawnee and go and try and chase the Supercross series. And it was fairly centralized, so I could, fly out on Thursday afternoons and get to the races and then be back for school on Monday, and had a nice little setup. But it kind of all fell through, and I started having some hand issues, and I just couldn't ride more than 3 or 4 laps at a time without my hands going numb, and ended up getting diagnosed with early onset arthritis in both hands, and it was not something you could really fix. And so that went 2 wheels for me. And we've had in the motorcycle industry, we have the adage, with age comes cage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept the path of still coming out here and going to the University of Oklahoma, and hopped in a midget. And within like 6 months of being here, I had started a midget team running through OU, and we were the only college in the country running a midget team. And so that kind of helped me get my foot in the door and get into one. And we ran that program for about 1.5 years, and then we got kicked out of the engineering department at OU because they said we were too fast and too dangerous. And I don't know if they were wrong or not, but there went my midget program. And so we broke off and did my own deal. And so I've been racing midgets and up until about 2.5 years ago, and then I kind of put my own racing on hold so we could take off on this safety company and this adventure. But right now we just sold midget, and we're building a 410 sprint car. So
okay,
we're gonna try and run a little bit of a true outlaw schedule, running some non-wing 410 stuff, some wing stuff. Just basically, we're really, really busy with the company right now. But if we have a weekend that comes open, it's find a place on the map and go to it. I really like traveling. I love traveling, and I love going to new tracks and racing, and I love Indiana. So there's not a ton of 410 stuff around here. So everybody's like, why are you building a 410 sprint car? There's no 410 racing around here. And I just tell everybody I enjoy the travel. I like going and getting my ass kicked in by the big boys, and I think that
you like to write checks and
I mean 410 stuff, especially we're running an older style 410 motor.
Okay.
It was cheaper than going and buying a new 360 or these new 305s. They're leaning on those motors so hard that they're getting ridiculously expensive too. Yeah. So we got like a 15-year-old 410 motor, that really good non-wing motor, and with the wing on, we're gonna have to have things slicking off, but it'll be fun.
I have a question for you. Now you say the 410. Explain that class, because our clientele is mainly in off-road racing. So what is the clientele? The clientele is off-road racing. Let's get with that. What is a 410? What are the specs, and how much does a car cost just to buy it, not race it?
That's a super loaded question on the price. It's anything from you can get into some older used stuff and an older motor, 25, 30K. You can also spend $85,000 on a new World of Outlaws 410 motor. The 410 is just 410 cubic inch.
Oh, okay, that's what it is. That's what 410 means, is cubic inches. So
for the most part, 305s, 360s, and 410s, that's all cubic inch, and pretty much breaks down.
So with the exception of the safety specifications, as long as it has a 410 and as long as it has a 410 cubic inch motor, then you're allowed to race in that class.
Sort of.
Yeah, they don't allow. Sprint cars are pretty far behind on what they allow. It's got to be a push rod motor. It's no.
So there's a Bible to it.
Yeah, no electronic fuel injection. There's a lot of stuff. So the sprint car is a very archaic motor. It's all, for the most part, based off the small block Chevy. A little bit of Ford. And then Toyota is currently developing a motor with the World of Outlaws, but for the most part, 90% of it is small block Chevy stuff.
I got you. Okay, now that's. I need to get in. I need to actually because I want to go to the Chili Bowl, but I don't know anything about it, so I never do go to the Chili Bowl because I don't want to spend the money to get in because I know it's expensive.
It's actually the way I've tried to go the last couple of years, and 1 year I actually ended up coming down with COVID. Like I was 2 days before I was going to go, wasn't feeling good. But you can go and buy a pit pass and get in that way, because usually the tickets to actually get in the bleachers are sold out
in May.
Yeah, like
for a race in January.
For a race in January. For a race, it's sold out in May. Jiminy Christmas. Okay.
They'll release the tickets. They're sold out, and then you might have scalpers or something, but you can get in and sit on the pit side and end up with the rowdies and stuff like that.
Kind of, theoretically. If you want to go sit on the pit side, though, you need to either have a friend or somebody down there with a blanket ridiculously early, especially if you're going Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Because it's just so packed, and they've deleted like used to be all the drivers got 2 tickets to go sit in like the reserve driver seating area. They've done away with that. It's Chili Bowl is, that's on the midget side. That's not sprint cars. That's midgets, which are running a little bit smaller, and they run a 4-cylinder engine. For the most part, they're all custom blocks. Not anything you're gonna find on the highway anywhere.
It's like a small block Chevy legit cut in half with a plate blocking off the other side of it. Stuff like that.
That's something I need to look into now.
But Chili Bowl is one of the coolest events in the year and one of the worst events in the year, all at the same thing. You get so excited, especially racing it. You're so excited for Chili Bowl, and aside from there's 350 something people show up. And aside from maybe 3 or 4 guys, everybody else is ready to sell their midgets by the time they're leaving the place. And then we do it all again the next year, because we're just all idiots. Ultimately, we're just not that bright.
Well, now let's go ahead and get down to the reason why we're here at the podcast. You mentioned just a little bit that you started a safety company. Tell us about that safety company, where it came from, where the name came from, and what you're trying to do for the industry now.
Like I said, I came from the motorcycle industry, and I had a long-time sponsor in the motorcycle industry, and that he went through several companies. He's really great at creating and selling companies. Originally, it was 661 helmets. He sold that, and but at the time, right at the end of my motorcycle career, I was riding for Atlas neck braces, and they do motorcycle neck braces. And then when I made the transition to 4 wheels, their owner, Eddie Cole, said, hey, we're interested in possibly doing a race car neck brace. Next time you're out in California, why don't you stop by the office? And we'd love to get your opinion on the current landscape on the race car neck braces, what they do well, and where there's room for improvement. So me and my dad started talking about it and thinking on it, and okay, what are we going to say when we go out there? And I thought, because my whole childhood, Eddie had become like a close friend and almost like a grandfather to me, and we would just go to his office and have lunch, and he'd give me cool one-off helmets. And so I was expecting to just go meet with him. We walk into a boardroom full of 10 people that sat.
No pressure.
Yeah, no. And I was 19, and they just sat there and grilled me for 2 hours on what the current braces were doing well, where there was room for them to fit. They were coming from the motorcycle side, and the UTV deal was just starting to take off really big in 2014-ish. So they were really trying to figure out, okay, the motorcycle has a direct connection with the UTVs because the motorcycle dealerships sell the UTVs. So how can we get in on this? Ultimately, they decided that they didn't want to, the motorcycle neck brace company was only 3 or 4 years old. They didn't want to direct funding away from the motorcycle side to develop a race car brace. They were like, it's going to be $1 million to develop this. We just can't do this at this time. And so Eddie had called me and told me that a few weeks after we met with him. And I was like, okay, well, me and my dad have been thinking about this a lot, and we have some ideas. Would you mind if we tried pursuing something on our own, maybe bring it back to you, just if we kept moving with this? And he's like, go for it. So we started working on an idea, and my dad had background both in machining, and then he in the motorcycle industry. He was did suspension development for several of the Supercross teams, and a long-time suspension and an engine builder. So we really understood shocks, and what we were seeing was the current braces on the market were doing a absolutely great job at preventing neck injury. Essentially took that off the table and then completely eliminated it. But how they were stopping the head, we felt like there was a lot of room for improvement in the concussion side.
Okay.
The rigid braces, when they bring your head to a stop, the only kind of energy absorption you have is from the belt stretch. And it's a really jarring feel. And as somebody who's crashed a race car and actually sat in the seat and crashed really hard, you feel that. It feels like your head bounced off a wall, yet there's not even a scratch on your helmet. And so we started working on a brace that would maintain the neck safety, but improve on the head safety. And so my dad started working on a shock absorber, and I started working on 3D modeling a brace to affix it to. And we started 3D printing braces, and we got something we were pretty happy with. And this was towards the end of 2016. And we went and took it up to the Cape crash testing facility in Indianapolis, because they're who you have to do your crash testing for both SFI and FIA. And so we figured if we were going to do crash testing anywhere, it needed to be with them, because they were the people that mattered. And at the time, we didn't have a whole lot of funding, and so we had one investor at the time, but we did not have a lot of money to go take off with this. And so we went in and they said, okay, well, for SFI, you got to do a straight on test and a 30-degree test. But the 30-degree test is the harder one. We see plenty of people that come in and do the 90 just fine, but then they get to 30 and they can't pass. And so how would you like us to set up the sled? And I was like, set it up for 30, because if we can't make it at 30, it doesn't matter anyway.
Well, I mean, yeah, go ahead and start with the harder one, and then you can step back to the easier one. Yeah.
And so that first test, we set it up and ran, and the engineer in the lab was looking at our test results afterwards, and I showed up, and I was early 20s, and I showed up with a backpack all by myself. I had like Ubered there. I wasn't old enough to get a rental car, and he was waiting for my boss to show up, thinking I was his assistant, and I was the one he had been talking to on over emails. And so he sets it up, we go and crash test it, and he's looking at the test results, and he's like, man, this is really good. This is like better than anything I've seen.
How many neck restraints do you think he had tested at that point?
A lot.
Okay.
A lot, yeah. Based off of our conversations, some of the other companies will go up there and essentially rent that for days on end or a week, and they can do 6 or 7 passes a day, and they spend a lot of time up there. So at that point in time, we were just like, man, we got something here, and we thought we were gonna have to develop for a lot longer than that. And so we came back from that, and we're like, okay, we have traction. We really had made the gains we were looking for on head protection already. But at the time, the brace was super ugly, super heavy. It was like a 9-pound brace. It could also be like double as a boat anchor. And it wasn't pretty. It was not my best job 3D modeling. It was pretty ugly.
Is there any way we can get a picture of an early one?
Yeah, I got it.
If you'd be willing to release that.
I can send you some. It's sitting at our office. But it was rough. But it was performing so well. Okay. So it's like, okay, we just need to take all this geometry that we have on this one, all the same pickup points, and let's go back to the drawing board, make this thing lighter, make it sexy, make this something worth purchasing. And also that was when we went and we filed for our patent.
Okay.
Let's stop right there. I do have a question for you, because you're talking about geometry, angles, and all that kind of stuff. Maths. How did you learn that? And you talked about at dinner. We all went to Land Run, by the way. Thank you, Land Run.
Yes, thank you, Land Run.
Yeah, but we'll talk about Land Run in a bit. But you said you went to OU. You went to University of Oklahoma, and what did you study? And tell us more about that, so we know where your history comes from and how the geometry and how your knowledge works.
Everybody assumes, since what I'm doing as as a business now, that I was an engineer. I wasn't. My dad is 4th generation machinist. We've been building stuff since I was a little kid. The engineering and building stuff side always came super naturally. I actually went and pitched my first product when I was like 14 years old to Sports Chalet out in California. So
Sports Chalet. What was Sports Chalet?
It's essentially like Academy. It was like the really high dollar sports store, like big box store in California, and kind of like Academy is here in Oklahoma. And we went and
that was a good one. It was loud.
I pitched a little. It was like a hybrid between a scooter and a bicycle and a skateboard to them, and they actually really liked it, but I couldn't come up with the money. I needed to order a container of them to make the deal go through, and I couldn't make the money side of that happen. And so when I went to go to college, instead of I originally started as an engineer, but I quickly realized was the engineering side I was familiar with. I was good at to do what I really wanted to do long term, which was start and create businesses and create products. You needed to understand the business side. And so that's when I originally made a change and went as an entrepreneurship major. And then after like a year of that, I made another change, and I actually created a degree in corporate innovation at OU. I ended up graduating with like 60 more credits than I actually needed to.
So you created your own degree?
Yeah, it's a program they have. You have to jump through a whole bunch of hoops. It's under multidisciplinary studies. You have to get your degree plan approved through the provost, do all this stuff, and then come up with a name and all this. But realistically, it allowed me to go and combine like 3 or 4 different degrees and add on a bunch of different classes that my advisors were adamant that I didn't need to take, but I felt were absolutely crucial for my long-term success when I got out in the real world.
Okay.
The scary part about it is when you do that, your degree, your piece of paper is worth nothing. They can, you go in with any advisors at OU and they'll tell you, oh, this degree guarantees you X amount of dollars, this degree X amount of dollars.
Bullshit.
Yeah, but they go and they take all of their previous graduates, take surveys of where they're at now, how much they're making, so you have a bottom, middle, and high level for what each degree is theoretically worth. Mine wasn't worth 2 pennies because it was a totally unproven commodity. It was really in improvement mode. Like, okay, you learned all this here, now you got to go do something with it. And but I felt good about it, and I was really happy when we were able to graduate. And the last like 3 or 4 semesters at OU were some of my like best times of my life, because I was going into every class like so excited for what I was going to be able to learn that day, as if like you were going to go like to a big conference and listen to a really cool speaker or somebody that like you look up to talk. I essentially just kind of got that feeling pretty much every class I was going to, and it was cool because I was able to pick and really create my own degree. So all the classes I was taking, I wanted to. There wasn't any classes I felt like I had to, and I can tell you every single day I'm using that stuff from the degrees, especially from classes that my advisors told me I didn't need to. And the other thing was I kept a really close relationship with a lot of my professors, and let me tell you, starting this company, I've leaned on almost all of them.
That's so
awesome.
Because they are, they're field experts. They are so smart. They specialize in this stuff. And it's like I have, 10 unpaid advisors that I can call up at any time. And, most of them are still local and here around Norman. And so I can make those phone calls. I can go get a meeting with them. And then, when you don't have a bunch of employees, it's great to have those assets, at your fingertips. So that's the education side of mine.
That's amazing, because you and I are on completely different sides of this, because my parents said they would help me.
He can't even read.
Well, it's close, but my parents said, hey, if you graduate high school, we'll help you pay for your college education. And I said, Mom and Dad, I will not waste your money, because I'm going to major in campusology, which would be drinking and partying and everything else. So they said, okay, well, we've kind of allotted this money for you. What do you want to do with it? And I said, I want to go to Branson and try to be a rock star, be a country music star. So that's what I did for the next 10 years.
Could you even play an instrument?
I played 5.
Well, before you got to Branson.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I think
I went the completely different route than what you did. You enjoyed college. Did you enjoy high school?
No, I thought high school was stupid. I didn't understand why I was there. And honestly, when I first got to OU, I struggled really bad. I actually, I don't often broadcast this, but I actually failed out of OU, and I had to take like a year off because I was doing so bad.
That's the same way my father did that. He was a propulsion engineer for the FAA as his career, and he failed out of University of Arkansas for 1 year, and then excelled the rest of them. I don't know what he did to do that, but
yeah, I I had the opportunity to go back to California. I could go transfer back and go straight back into school in California. I had grandparents who worked within like 3 of my 4 grandparents are college professors, and so I could have gone to school in California for free. I could have done a bunch of different things, and I was terrified that if I went back, I would never finish. And so I stayed out here. I got a job, started working at Enterprise Rental Car, washing cars for $7.25 an hour. And then I went and got a job, or then I went and started taking classes at Rose State, kind of got course corrected. It sounds stupid as all get out, but I read Steve Jobs' book, and he dropped out of college, and everybody uses that as like a...
I don't need college.
Yeah, I don't need college, but what they don't mention was that after he dropped out of college, he stayed at that college for 2 years, dropping in and auditing classes and all the things that he was interested in and he thought was important. And he would sit through all the lectures, sit through all the projects, but he didn't get a grade for a damn thing. He was there for like the purity of education and learning. And that's why we have fonts and computers from his calligraphy classes and so many things in those 2 years after he dropped out. But staying on campus influenced so much of his life afterwards that's when I became this, like, had this like overwhelming feeling like I need to go back. And I need to learn and I need to absorb. And it doesn't matter what my grades are, what my degree says. If I want to go do the things I want, I have to take this seriously and get out of this deal like, oh, I got to do this homework or I got to get through this class. Stop looking at it as like, oh, this bullshit thing that I need to get through. And like, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to, but I don't want to be actually doing this. Go there and see what you can get out of it. And I hate promote like inspirational speakers and stuff like that.
Well, you'd be a pretty good one right now.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm also can be the opposite of inspirational and tell you all the reasons you shouldn't do things.
I would like to see you sit down with the guy from Dirty Jobs, Mike Rowe, and have you all go back and forth, because I like a lot of things he says about education, but you're also saying a lot of things I like too.
Well, it's just one of those things where I don't think everybody needs to go to college, and I don't think that inherently going to college means you're something.
True.
I don't think like the value of a degree is what you bring, what you learn, what you retain. So many people memorize, and then as soon as they get out of that class, out of that year, out of that whatever, they can't tell you anything they learn. And I know there was a lot of kids, like almost all my classes, I didn't actually graduate from the business school, but all my classes were in the business school because I was creating my own degree. It was in the College of Arts and Sciences, but all of my classes, like 80%, were in the College of Business. And I can tell you so many of those kids thought they had it all figured out. Their professors were idiots, and the professors were just wasting their time, making them do stupid projects. And I can tell you those kids right now are like struggling to swim, not understanding, like they're out in the real world with like, deer in the headlights. And a lot of this
Why
stuff,
does my trust fund not have a...
Exactly.
Why did it run out?
And even kids that were smart, I was by far not the smartest kid in my classes. There wasn't a single class I was the smartest kid. I did things like I'd sit in the front of class, I'd bullshit with professors, I'd have like an open dialogue, and it helped me so much. And it got to like I said, like I'm friends with most of my like former professors now. Simple Modern Drinkware. They make like insulated water bottles and cups and stuff like that, like similar to like Yeti. They started in 2016, and they already sell more cups and drinkware than Yeti and Hydro Flask combined, and they're based out of Moore. Okay. And their founder was one of my professors at OU, and I still have a meeting with him like once a month. He's incredibly good at e-commerce, all facets of business, but specializes in e-commerce. And I meet with him once a month to kind of evaluate where we are with our business, how we can grow, what we can do. And he's helped a ton. And, supply chain management, all kinds of different classes. I just have professors that are, have that.
They're helping you with you.
Okay. Yeah, and they don't know anything about race cars.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. Now, you said after we got off the college tangent, you said you filed for the patent. When did you file for the patent for the Meru? For Meru. Is it Meru or Meru?
Meru.
Okay, before you go with the patent, where did you come up with the name Meru?
Because it's such a common name.
Oh yeah, it was, I saw it on a toothpaste box. No, we in one of my classes at OU, they had us watch this documentary about climbing Mount Meru. It's a mountain in the Himalayas.
I get the logo now.
And it's one of the it's supposed to be like the hardest mountain to climb. You have all these guys who work as Sherpas on Everest, climbing people up. They do 20 trips a year up Everest, get paid to take other people up. And they go and try and climb Meru, and they just couldn't do it. And it's like 8,000 feet shorter than Everest, but you have to be able to do big wall climbing, snow climbing, and there's some other form. Anyway, 3 drastically different types of climbing, and you have to carry the last part to get up to the last little bit is big wall. So you have to carry like 250 pounds of big wall gear all the way to the top of this mountain.
Clips, all that stuff.
And so it's an incredibly difficult climb, but my class, we had to watch it to, like, everybody should find a mountain to climb, something that just burns inside them, that thing they want to accomplish, and then go figure out how to climb that damn mountain. And so this documentary did an awesome job at going through, and it was the first guys to ever climb Meru, and it was a 3-man team, and it talked about the dangers, the adversity, like how they were 3 drastically different people. It taught you like the value of never having like 2 of the same person in a room. If there's 2 of the same person, one of them's not needed. And so it was just an awesome business, like you could draw so many parallels to business. And so it was a great movie, and I'd watched it 4 or 5 times. And we actually, this was supposed to be a different name, Brace. I'm not going to say what the name was supposed to be, because we had a licensing deal with a company to use their name. Okay. And we had, for like 4 years, the plan was to go with these people, and they were awesome people. And they were letting us use their name, but part of our licensing agreement said that if we ever sold our company, we couldn't sell our name with it. And as I begin to understand more and more about the business side and long-term aspirations, and if you ever sell, it makes it so you're not really selling a brand. You're just selling a product and your sales, but you can't sell the name and the logo with it, which takes a ton of value out of it. So it was actually last summer. We had, right before we were getting ready to really dive into our launch and start producing, we had to change names. We decided it would be best to. And so I spent about 2 weeks losing my mind, trying to figure out names. I probably sent my wife 100 different name ideas. I decided I liked the Japanese language, and I liked a lot of the logos and stuff I'd seen off of Japanese, using Japanese names. So I bought a Japanese to English dictionary, and I was going through that, and then for whatever reason I was looking at it one day, and I don't know what I even saw, but all of a sudden it clicked. I was like, Meru, the movie that I watched, because we were looking for something.
So it wasn't even in that expensive dictionary?
No, it was $7 on Amazon. It wasn't super expensive, but I mean, for me, I'm pretty cheap, but I think I actually bought a used version on Amazon.
Even better. His wife's over there nodding.
But it wasn't even in the book. But I saw something that sparked it for me. We were looking for something that was short, that was sweet, that meant something, that was easy. Just a few letters, would be easy to adapt and get people memorizing. And so then I looked up Meru. Then I looked up what does Meru mean, and it's in the ancient language of Sanskrit. Meru means peak. And I was like, we're looking to be the peak of performance. This works perfectly. And so it was a great tie-in. Then I started working on logos, and my business partners and my advisors were pretty critical. We did another week of me making sheets with 20 different versions of logos and sending it every day. And finally we came up with the logo, and the M makes it so you can do a nice mountain shape with the logo. Meru meaning peak. It just felt all like it was coming together. And then we were looking for what the okay, that's going to be the name of the company. what are we going to name the product? And that was when we're like, okay, this is our first foray into this. It's a company based off of mountains. So let's call it the first ascent. This is the first climb up the mountain.
Okay.
And
so it all ties in very nicely.
Maybe it's not as for marketing purposes. It's a harder sell for people to understand, but it all made sense in here. And ultimately, when you look at most brands that you don't know what they actually mean or why. It just becomes a name that you're used to saying.
And there's probably a backstory. You just got to find it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why we like doing this podcast. For the simple fact is, we like to hear the backstory and how it happened. And I know a lot of the off-road racers that we have that are watching the podcast. They want to know the history about it. They want to know everything about it because they're going to put their life in their own in your hands on that deal.
Yeah.
So that's why we want to know the history about it. So let's go. We've heard the name story. You got the patent. You applied for the patent in what year?
2016. It was fall 2016. We got a year up provisional patent at that point, and then I think we filed a couple extensions. We were trying to decide if we were going to sell it to another company or if we were going to take it to market ourselves. And once we decided that we were going to take it market to ourselves, we filed for the full patent, and that then it was kind of a waiting game because the patent process it takes forever. And so I was still in college, and I was just kind of like hanging out and waiting around, and then all of a sudden COVID hit, and things got really weird. During that time we had met with a couple different companies, couldn't find the right dancing partner. And so COVID hit. All of a sudden, May 2020, I'm graduating from OU, and within the same week, I graduated from OU, and we got our patent granted.
Nice.
And so it's like, all right, it's time to go. Put on your big boy pants. Let's go make this happen. But then, even for the next year, everything was shut down. Mm-hmm. It was impossible to me. At that point, we needed to raise investment.
Is your dad living in California at the time?
In 2015, like 2 years after I came out here, my whole family followed me out. And,
they were like, this area is so much better than where we're from in California. We're going to come out here.
We actually had tried to move to Oklahoma in 2007. Had made a offer on a house down in Atoka, and
when I told you we sand dragged, that was down
in Atoka. Yep. I know where the sand drags are there. Yeah, we made a offer there, and my parents were trying to take the equity they had in their house in California, be able to pay it off there, and then buy a house here cash. And they needed like $20,000 extra to make the whole deal go. And so our realtor in California is like, oh, just put new flooring and countertops in your house. And if you do that, we'll be able to get you what you want to do. And so it took like 4 months for us to make that renovation. And I'm not sure if you guys remember much about 2007, but everything crashed and we were stuck in California for the considerable future. And so I won. I made it to Oklahoma first. It was the opposite of the Dust Bowl when everybody was going. All the Okies were going to California. I was coming back back to Oklahoma. I actually have like relatives like 3 generations up. They all came from Oklahoma, so it was like a return home for me. I grew up in a small ski resort mountain town.
You don't do anything conventional.
No.
From dating to business to education to where you end up living, like nothing has been conventional. If you get nothing from this podcast, this man is not conventional. He kind of beats or walks to the beat of his own drum, I guess you could say. But
I know you guys have a big off-road following, and I don't know if you guys are aware the roads are paved now. So I hope that you guys can appreciate taking the road less traveled and
definitely
aiming for the bumps. And I really enjoy finding my own way, and I don't accept that just because everybody else is doing it that it's the thing to do.
Right.
I've been the annoying little kid that has asked why my whole life, and I want to understand it. I want to take apart everything. I want to understand how it works. Now, half the stuff I took apart never found its way back together, but I at least understand how it operated.
You understand how it operates,
Mm-hmm.
which let's go ahead and take a pause here, and I want to talk about our 2 sponsors that we actually have. First off, we want to talk about Land Run Off-Road. No, it's Land Run Bar and Grill.
That'd be an awesome name for an off-road park, though.
No, Land Run is right off of I-35, right at Tecumseh Road, just north of Norman. They've been good friends of mine for a long time. And what they do is they take all of our podcast guests, they bring them out. We go to their place before we come to this studio, and we sit down and we have dinner, and we try not to talk about too much, but we do talk about a lot. But they take care of the dinner for all of us, and I want to say thank you to them. That's what they do for us. We're basically, it's just a great product sponsor. And I'll tell you what, the great thing is, it's right off the interstate with a big. I mean, it's got a decent sized parking lot, and then right across the street, there's a parking lot for big toters and stuff. So if you're coming from Oklahoma City and you're heading down to, let's say, Crossbar, or if you're in Dallas, Fort Worth, or Ardmore, or any of that way, and you're going up to see Jay, Oklahoma at Mid-America Off-Road, you can stop by, grab a drink, grab dinner, grab lunch, have a great sit-down restaurant there. That's why I like them.
Maybe a block from the interstate.
Yeah, it's like a block from the interstate. Easy in, easy out. That's one reason why I kind of targeted them to come see us and be a part of our podcast. So thank you, Garrett and Gary and Amy, for sponsoring this podcast. Our second one is Territory Whiskey. They've been a part of us for so far. I think we're at 5 episodes that they've sponsored. And since AJ spends most of his time not drinking, we are bringing up his newlywed wife to take a sip of it and to tell us what it's about. Come around here to his mic.
She's 2% something, 2% hairdresser. That's what it is.
So, yeah, she's Latino hairdresser, everything.
Costa Rican.
Michelle, come on over here if you want a drink.
Oh, and she's Irish.
I poured one for you, so come on over.
Yeah, she's Irish, so I think that may do more. The 2% Latina was just off of a DNA test.
You look like you just came off a tennis court or something.
Thank you.
Well, the thing is, let me tell you the story about how we met Jamie. We met Jamie at a dive bar here in Noble.
Yeah.
And he was doing a sampling, a tasting. We didn't know who he was.
Was he here at the Friendly Tavern?
No, he was at the Hilltop.
I didn't even know this about how this started.
Yeah,
okay.
So he was at the Hilltop. I thought he was one of the owner's cronies. Like, I thought he was just a helper, no big deal. So I bugged him for this hat. I was like, that's good
Sounds
whiskey.
Like one of your stories.
And I was like, I bugged him. She bugged him. He wouldn't give it to us. Finally, he gave it to us. And then like a month later, I called him, or I sent him a message on Facebook. I said, hey, man, you need to be part of this podcast. Yeah. I think it'll be good. And he's like, all right, call me. So I called him, and he's like, yeah, I'm down. Let's make a deal at the horse track. You can bet on my horse. Okay, deal. So we went to the horse track. We made a deal. He takes care of whiskey for all of our guests. So you guys get to take home that full bottle of Territory whiskey.
She gets to take one.
I love this. I mean, after the delicious dinner at Land Run, now you're giving me whiskey.
Yes. So cheers to Territory, See You on the Trail, and Meru Safety.
Cheers.
Here we go.
Do you want to smell it?
No, I absolutely not.
Okay, what's your honest opinion?
That is absolutely delightful.
What does it taste like?
Sweet, a little nutty at first, but definitely like some cinnamon. Do not laugh.
It's a little nutty at first.
I feel like it's a very easy whiskey to drink.
It's a cinnamon pecan?
Mm-hmm. I think I have it. I think I have it right here. Hold on.
Cinnamon.
Hold on a sec.
You're pecan cinnamon. Did you hear that?
Pecan cinnamon.
It was the first podcast we did. Michelle said something to me, and my response was, "You're pecan cinnamon."
She didn't have a headset on, so she didn't actually hear it.
I heard a little bit. I heard pecan cinnamon. That is very, very good.
It's not cinnamony. Like I
tell. At the end, I feel like there's just like that sweet.
I tell a lot of people about it because I've been trying to get it at the bars and like around more, and nobody even knows about it. And
Okay, truly, what it reminds me of is when you walk through. Have you guys ever gone through those spiced nut stands? Mm-hmm. And that aroma.
Ooh, good point.
That's what this tastes like.
Yes, mm-hmm. I never thought about that.
The first thing that comes to my mind.
But anytime I say cinnamon whiskey, or whiskey with anything cinnamon in it. Pecan cinnamon. Did you hear it now? Here.
I want to know. I want to be here.
You're pecan cinnamon.
It's so much nicer in here. All I could hear out here is pecan cinnamon.
But everyone thinks cinnamon. I'm like, no. It's smooth.
It's more pecan. It's more nutty.
Well, and she knows this because her aunt actually owns a
nut house.
A toasted pecan stand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I worked in it when I was like a little kid. So the first thing upon tasting it was, wow, this reminds me of like kind of my childhood, and it was an easy swallow. You don't need a chaser. Nope.
So you married into a nutty family.
Thank you so much.
Beats to a different drum. We've already talked about that. So thank you very much. And so she gets to take care of that. But we also have something that we do, and I didn't even mention this to you, AJ, but we actually try to get people to bring stuff to us that are just kind of something that we can throw up on our wall.
We want to thank you for giving us one of your neck restraints.
Yeah. I can bring you a box. I don't have enough of them. Every day we get people like aggressively demanding free product from us, or if we like send them we have a really expansive driver support program, and we try and get basically everybody who fills out driver support form, unless there's something glaring wrong with their social media accounts or something, we try and get everybody some form of discount. And we've had some people we offer them a discount, and they're like, "Are you serious?
That's the best you can do."
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to wear it then. And I'm like, that is okay. Like, don't
worry about it.
I'd like you to protect your head, but if you're going to be like that, continue wearing what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I'm gonna tell a story right after we talk about this, because he's holding on to this little thing. Now, everybody in this podcast that is watching this podcast knows where this came from. Now, this guy is a not this guy. The guy that gave this to me is a 2-time KOH champion. He's raced numerous times.
KOH is like the Chili Bowl.
King of the Hammers, yeah.
King of the Hammers.
I'm a California guy. I don't know a ton on off-road, but I got King of the Hammers down.
There we go.
As long as he says King of the Hammers and not King of Hammers or King Hammers, it drives me nut up a wall. Thank you for saying King of the Hammers. But anyway, Lauren found out back in 2015, 2016 that I lost all my equipment that I was doing. So he calls me and says, "Hey, man, I got a GoPro. I'll send you and give it to you." This is like 14, 15, 16. That's a GoPro 1. So I'll show you when it was.
Yeah, I was looking at the sides and everything. I was like,
it's the original.
That's OG. And the logo on the Hero.
Yes.
I was like, that's an original GoPro.
But anyway, so he gave it to me, and I kept it, never used it. It was way out of date.
That's why he won't sign it for
No,
you.
wait a minute. So, no, he won't sign it because it's me. But anyway, from now, I called him like a year or two ago when I started this podcast. I said, "Hey, man, why don't you sign it? And we'll do a raffle or a giveaway or something for it." Well, he adamantly will not sign it. And he's a good friend. I mean, we have our phone numbers, we talk and everything else. I mean, at the last podcast that was here, the podcast guest sent him a text him and said, "Hey, can you sign this for Lauren? Or can you sign this for Hitch? Or can you sign this GoPro?" And he sent back a text and said, "Not for Hitch." So
that's his nickname. Yeah.
So this is why we say every podcast, "Lauren, please sign that GoPro."
I don't have any pull.
Wait, I think you do. So if you just hold this and say, "Hey, as the owner of this safety company,"
does Lauren still race?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so Lauren, I'm willing to offer you a discount on a brace.
There we go.
If you will sign this, but I have to see an actual signature first. But then I think we can make a deal on a brace.
And the thing is if we can get this signed, we will do a giveaway with people that are watching the podcast. And I don't know, maybe we can throw some Meru swag in with it also, maybe.
Yeah, I need more Meru swag. All I have is hats right now, and we're supposed to sell these hats. We never even put them on the website, and I'm already almost out of the whites, and there's only like a few blacks left. Oh, and a couple beanies.
If you're listening and you have a hat company or an embroidery company, reach out.
I say that I have a really good hat company. I'm just like we talked about before.
You said you're cheap.
Yes. Cheap. So okay, now let's. You've got the patent. You got everything taken care of there. Now you've built the company, and now you're waiting on product to be built and done, right? Is that where we're at?
No, the building the company, it was a slow burn. It was a long time struggling and then everything all at once. I spent 10 years trying to become an overnight sensation. It was a ton of, we drove to Knoxville, Iowa to try and get a 30-minute conversation with an investor. We drove to Indy. We drove all over the place just trying to meet with investors and try and get the funding to take it to market. And we at that point we had the patent. We pretty much had a product ready to go, but we didn't have like our business structure.
So why didn't you go like on the Shark Tank?
For the same reason that a quality musician doesn't go on American Idol. I hate.
So Alan would have done great on American Idol, is what you're saying?
I absolutely hate Shark Tank. It's the most like. I've had to do so many pitches. I've had to do those conversations, but I hate made for TV anything.
Okay,
I agree with you.
So we did not go in there, but we struggled for a long time just trying to find the right people to understand what we're doing. We were going to a lot of the wealthy people in motorsports, but honestly, for the most part, like racing is where they spend their money, not where they make their money. And so it was, or you have some people that have they were really good at doing one thing, but they're not like an experienced like angel investor or anything. Like investing in new stuff is not necessarily where they have their like a lot of experience. And so it was rough. And we went and did an accelerator program here in Oklahoma City to try and raise capital from more traditional non-racing places and like VC firms and accredited investors and stuff like that. It was like 35 people applied to get into the program, and they only took 5 people or 5 companies, and we were one of them. And we went through, it was like a 10-week program. It was pretty intensive, but they really just worked with us on our structure, our planning, where trying to take us from just beyond a product to a brand, and where you can expand to, what other industries are out there, what other products can you make, and not for the immediate, but for the long term, because that's what gets investors excited is when, where you could grow to. It's not necessarily where you're at right now. It's where can you be 5 years from now. And it helped our company so much.
And then you end up with jackasses like us asking you to come do our podcast.
I'd way rather do the podcast than go and make another pitch to an investor and get told no. But it was really, really good for us. The last week of that program, you pitched to 25 investors. And it is just, grilling you. But by the time you leave the program, you are like, you're ready to go out in the real world. And it,
and it sounds like you are, they develop you to be able to answer those questions.
Oh yeah. And you got to a point, there's almost not I can talk for 2 hours straight about the brace, the company, that you can ask me any question you want. And I almost always have an answer for it. And going into that program, I couldn't have said the same thing. I knew a ton about the product, but on all the rest of the questions was where where I would get caught up. And so we finally got through that program, and it actually our original where we were able to grow in that program actually re-inspired our original investor to come back in and invest more.
Is that who you were telling us about?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And John Giles, he's awesome. He's back to this program since the beginning, but also he very much took give a man a fish, feed him for a night, teach a man a fish, feed him for a lifetime. If he would have given me the money he gave us, last July, 5 years ago when we first started, I would have ran the company into the ground. I wasn't ready yet.
It wouldn't be here.
Yeah, it wouldn't be where it is today. It took a lot of growth and learning and understanding and then failing and then going and get it the hard way, getting those no's from all these other people, and then being able to come, finally when he got to the point where he was ready to and put more money in was when we started getting serious attraction from investors outside. and we were going to bring more people in, and then all these people wanted to invest by the end of that program, and then it was, okay, let's go do this, and let's keep this internally, let's not dilute anymore. And so it was a huge confidence boost for me to have people that were, involved at the beginning.
And you had the patent at that time, right?
Yep.
Did you have SFI certification or anything?
No. The SFI did not come. With our prototypes, we had we were way under the SFI threshold with our prototypes, but we didn't actually have certification because.
And by that you mean you were better than the minimum?
Yeah,
right?
They have a maximum number that you can test for upper neck tension, compression, and nidge, and you can. We were under all of that.
So you were blowing the test out of the water with the prototypes.
With the prototype.
Okay.
But for SFI certification, it has to be with a brace off the production line.
One that's ready to sell.
Yes, okay. It made the exact same way the ones that you're selling on.
I'm assuming your later prototypes got to the point where they're pretty similar to the ones off the shelf, right?
Yep. So the only difference was all of our prototypes until we got our production ones were all 3D printed. We got to the point where we liked, we got the shape. We were using like honeycomb printing on the 3D printing to try and get the weight similar. We're getting really close to what the production product looked like. It just was 3D printed.
And is 3D printing the bulk of it not a feasible way to produce it in the long run?
So you have issues with flame retardants. Also, that it takes a long time to 3D print them. They're good in an impact, but not good like bouncing around in a gear bag. And there's a whole bunch of reasons. And they're just, I wouldn't say economical. Also, could you do it? Yes. Like I raced with a 3D printed one a bunch.
Okay.
But
so you actually raced with one of your prototypes?
Yeah. Okay. But was I allowed to? No. Did they not tech? Yeah.
And so, would you want one of your customers doing that?
No. And like we could make 3D printed braces that the public could go and drive in. They don't have the finish you're looking for. Also, people just want they want carbon fiber, titanium. They want all those catchphrases that sound cool, look cool. And so
which also carbon fiber is a very rigid, strong, lightweight structure, and it works very well for this purpose.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, no, I mean it's awesome. We've considered a bunch of different ways of what kind of materials we might be able to make braces with in the future, but we're really happy when we finally got these braces that we have now in. The first time I pulled one out and I saw it finished, I was like, wow, this is cool, because I'd only ever seen like 3D printed ones just have like a matte finish. You can see the lines from the printing. They never look...
Unless you go in and body work it and
sand it. And so we actually with the 3D printing, we couldn't get it light enough to like feel like the carbon, but also be strong enough to test. So we had a bunch of ones. We were at the Indy 500 last year, and we had one that was supposed to be like the same weight as this one is now, but it wasn't one that was actually crashable. And it was like cheap material. It was just a
prop.
Yeah, a prop. And then we had sanded it down, polished it, painted it, made it look really pretty. And we actually had somebody break it. And it looked so bad on us. We had only had one with us because we'd only done like the full body work deal on one of them. And the guy broke it, and we had a meeting with the IndyCar team the next morning. So we were in our hotel room at like 1:00 in the morning, and I had gone to Walmart and bought all these like power tools and body work stuff, and we
super gluing it back together,
and grinders,
like you broke your dad's golfing trophy.
Yeah, I'm sure our neighbors. We were in like a nice hotel, and they were like, I'm sure our neighbors were furious with us because
like, wow, they're having either a great time over there, or he is dismembering a body.
But you could barely tell the next morning. Like I made like JB Weld molds with silly putty.
That's awesome.
And stuff like that, and like it, and then sanded it down, painted it, and you could barely tell the next morning. I did tell the IndyCar team that somebody had broke it, and so it might be a little fragile. It didn't break again, but that one was officially retired after that weekend.
and put in the on the shelf for display. But, okay, now we're talking about it actually. So let's cut right now and then go to actually.
Okay, you're golden. All right, AJ, we moved some stuff around.
Yes.
We've got, 2-year braces here, right?
Yep.
And these are the small mediums.
Correct.
But the difference between the large is just bigger size, right?
Yeah, just a little bigger for your neck. It's just wider. It actually uses all the same hardware. The only difference is the collar base. So we're gonna have those in here hopefully early June.
So I want to rip a Band-Aid off. Where are they made?
They are made. Most of our stuff is made in China. Some of our shocks and tether stuff's made in Taiwan.
Why that? And
the composites are really expensive. Especially with ours, we have a ton of CNC machining involved. I can tell you that we couldn't even get the hardware made for our brace for the price we get our whole brace made packaged here, and that unless some people want a $4,500 neck brace. If you want a $4,500 version, then we could make it here. But we went and we actually spent a month overseas setting up manufacturing. It wasn't a deal where we did everything from here. We went there. We were embedded in it. We did the same pains that Robbie Gordon's been dealing with on the
with his Speed UTV stuff.
And we got a lot of good faith by going over there. Especially it was a really difficult time when we went over. They were still in really strict lockdowns. It was almost impossible to get into the country. We spent almost 2 weeks just trying to get there, and we could write a book on that whole trip. But by doing it, we found an awesome manufacturer, great people to work with, incredibly good product. I know my dad built carbon fiber and reed valves for jet skis in the early 2000s at his machine shop, and they were mass producing those. So my dad had a background in composites, and he was so impressed with not only the products they were able to put out, but a fairly small factory, how clean everything was. Carbon fiber can be super messy.
Does the factory have any certifications to it or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean...
like ISO or anything like that?
Yeah, they have ISO. They've got a wall that they are very proud of every different certification you could want. And I am not very good with all of the acronyms.
Well, there's also so many. The only one I know of is ISO, I think 9001, because of a place I was working at was working towards that certification.
Yep.
And I know it was a multi-year process and was multiple inspections. Everything had to be very precise and documented. So if it carries anything like that, it's got to be legit. And would you trust your life with it, or your potential future kids' life with one of your products and where it's made?
I wouldn't put my kid in anybody else's brace but ours, and I have an 11-year-old. So I definitely believe in the product. We went through a very possibly excessive QC procedure that we go through them, not only for the parts that are good, but also where the bad parts go and how those are destroyed and how those are marked to make sure that there's no possibility of a bad part ever reaching the real world.
Are there any of your parts that you have developed along the way that may have failed that you?
Oh yeah, we there was a bunch of stuff. The going from a prototype where you're doing everything in house, or down the street, I come from my dad's 4th generation machinist, so we built a lot of stuff ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then putting all that on computer and having things made in different places, and when we were getting samples back, and there was stuff that we need to make this tweak here, we need to adjust this. We were still doing a little bit of R&D even as we were ramping up for production, because we're the type of people that we want to make it better, better, better. So if you think you can make this tweak here, adjust it, you want to do it. Some of that didn't work. We had a really, really cool, in theory, clip system, how to anchor to the helmet that failed. and we were at a point where we'd spent a bunch of money on tooling and injection molds and all kinds of different stuff to make this.
You'd already spent money for the design that failed?
Yes,
Oh,
and we, you know, we'd spent quite a bit of money on tooling, and we could have gone back and tried to play with different materials, but it was something that scared me. And if anything like that failed in real life, I just wasn't. I couldn't do it.
Well, and I can only assume that's something you're not going to recover from. Like now, as products being delivered, if that would have happened, something would have happened now or moving forward, that's a reputation as a new company you might not ever be able to come back from.
No, and you, especially when you're developing a product like this, you can't have a big ego. You can't get stuck in, well, this was my idea, so this is, you know, each little piece that I'm going to run with this because that was what I came up with. If something fails or something isn't working right, something isn't gelling, throw it in the scrap heap and go do some, you know, go a different direction. So, like our anchor system was a complete redesign and rework, and it was now it's something we're really proud of, our anchor system, but there was a point in time, and it was when we had already started getting set up with our factory, and it wasn't anything that our factory did wrong. It was just we were trying to make a swing at something that was really cool, and it seemed great in theory, but in practice it failed. And what we realized after it failed was that there was no safety net for it. If one piece component in this system didn't work, the whole thing, you know, you had a free floating head, and we weren't willing to even like consider that. So we threw that in the dumpster and ate the tooling on it and went in a different direction.
So redundancy is something that is a big part of endurance racing, whether it's like running down Baja Peninsula or King of the Hammers, and not so much in sprint car racing, but even NASCAR. They've got two sets of ignition systems.
Yep.
You know, those redundancies are very important. So that way, if one thing fails, there's a backup. And
Yep.
it sounds like you found that you needed a redundancy in that part, and you came up with a way to have I wouldn't say fail safe, because nothing is. We're all human. Things are developed.
We chose to race cars. There's no such thing as perfection or 100%
but
safety.
you switch directions to a different clip system that is a little bit more redundant.
Yeah, it's a system. All the strength on our clip system comes from an M6 bolt that's very similar to what, you know, the industry standard is, and it the really only difference in ours is a magnetic retention system, and a lot of our competitors use a spring-loaded system. Ours is magnetic. You know, we're looking at, you know, what's the wave of the future, what's everybody doing. They're not making spring-loaded phone mounts, they're not making stuff like that. Everything's going towards magnets, and they're light and super strong, and so we found a way to use a magnetic retention system, and now it's something that I think is one of our. We don't spend a lot of time on it because I think our shock absorber gets most of the spotlight, but I think our anchor system is pretty cool.
So let's go to the shock absorber, because a lot of the guys that watch this, the shock system in these vehicles that most of the people that watch this particular podcast, it's a big deal.
Are you telling me off-road guys use shocks?
And they're not a shock that's that big that can go in a dyno and move around a bunch. I mean, some of these shocks are as tall as us.
Yeah.
Particularly Phil Accardi, he has a bypass that's also a coilover that he's developed.
Yep.
And this thing goes from the back corner of the B-pillar, where the roof and the B-pillar is, down to a trailing arm. That's how long those things are. So your shock, does it use pressurized nitrogen as a spring with gas in a piston, like I'm thinking of a nitrogen shock, or can you expand on how it's actually dampening or slowing down the movement?
So it's fairly simple and complex all at the same time.
Of course.
It's a very, super small little shock. I think it's only 140 millimeters long, so exact opposite of his shock.
Is there an inch measurement on that? Because most of us aren't Canadian.
You know, I think it's, you know,
Open it up.
Maybe 5 inches.
We're getting there.
You can't actually even see the shock with all the covers and everything we have on it. But it's got oil inside. My father had a background in suspension development on the motorcycle side, and specifically for Supercross, to be able to go through a set of Supercross hoops, the suspension needs to be extremely stiff to not bottom going through a set of hoops, but also soft enough to squat and settle in the corner so the bike will still turn. So what they developed was called Christmas tree valving, and it's just a form of speed-sensitive valving that allows it to, at that super high-speed impact, it gets really stiff, but at a, lower impact, it moves fairly free. Ours is extremely aggressive on both, it moves, with your fingers at low speed, but in a 70G impact, it barely, it stiffens up so it doesn't even use the entire travel at 70 Gs.
So your shock is actually, taking inspiration from Supercross and stuff like that.
Yep.
Well, do you mind if we actually look at it now?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
You get to open it.
So
I spent way too much time working on this packaging for me to open it up. You get to have the honors.
All right. So you can see everybody, got all the information on it. What do we got here? Some of your information about how it works and all that.
These are the terms that maybe the average person doesn't know.
Okay.
We talk a lot about in our marketing, whether it's high velocity impacts, which you probably know, versus like angular acceleration and low threshold energy, upper neck tension, and specifically one of the things we do really well is time to peak. Just moving. If you think about an impact, you can put 5 pounds of weight on your hand and it doesn't hurt. If you take a 5 pound weight, drop it on your hand, it's gonna hurt.
Okay.
So just moving, even if we didn't even lower the energy, just taking that energy and dispersing it over a wider amount of time is something we've done very well. So we try to, on our packaging, give a little bit of education. However many people read it, who knows? But I'm also I'm a packaging guy. I think especially for a $1,200 product, it shouldn't just be
packaging, presentation, how it's shipped. It means a lot, right?
I don't think it should just be like a simple box wrapped in wrapped in
some bubble wrap.
Yeah, bubble wrap, and that's what you get for $1,200. So we got a nice box.
I know I've seen some unboxing videos for RC cars, and the packaging, it looks and feels very nice. So I can only expect that for that price, it's what you get. All right, so here we go. Oh, so this is talking about your dampening system.
Yep, the IDS is our shock
that's
system.
The actual name.
Yeah, inertia dampening system.
Okay.
That's
nice. So you got that in there covered, and then I know from the videos I've watched of your stuff, it comes with a bag and a case. It's not a separate thing you have to buy, right?
Correct. Yep. Every brace ships with the carrying case.
Is that industry standard?
No, absolutely that.
Okay.
I haven't opened it.
I don't own a neck brace, so I honestly don't know if they all come with a padded case like this.
No, most of them come wrapped in bubble wrap.
Okay. All right.
I haven't purchased every brace out there. I haven't purchased a brand new one from every single one, but I know we've purchased some of our big competitors, and honestly, we didn't really care what they were doing. I loved, when I raced motorcycles, I loved goggle bags. I loved stuff like that. I find myself, my neck brace doesn't fit in my helmet bag, so I got to just throw it in my gear bag.
It's not something you want to get beat up.
No, and for me, I felt like it was something that needed its own case, and
that's some forethought that I appreciate as a potential buyer of something like this in the future.
The inside the case, we got some pockets for hardware. You can throw rolls of tear-offs in, or deals of tear-offs.
Or short course off-road and in dirt track racing, you have to have a special device so you can listen to track officials.
Yeah, receiver.
Yeah. So all that stuff, and it could go right in here, because a helmet bag is usually just a bag for the helmet.
Yeah, the helmet bag just slips open. There's not any extra pockets or any thing in there.
So you got some room for that. Now, You don't have instructions in here, do you?
No, we're in the 21st century. We didn't need to send instructions.
So is that what this little doohickey's for?
Yep. So that card there, you scan it with your phone. It takes you to the web page on our website that's got an instruction video. Shows you exactly what you need to do to hook up the helmet hardware, how to hook up your helmet, or the brace to your helmet. All fairly self-explanatory, but if you need any help, just scan that code and it'll take you to the instruction video.
So in this bag is your hardware and blue Loctite?
Blue Loctite, yep.
Okay.
I don't trust the little, some of this stuff comes with like the dried blue Loctite that's supposed to be activated when you do it. I didn't trust it. We decided to just give you a whole little deal, and if you ever need to take it off, swap helmets, you got another. Just throw that Loctite in with your bag, and
a little dab will do you.
Yeah, you'll be taken care of.
And then this is a thank you from the company.
Yeah.
And you and is that your partner?
Yeah. Well, this is he's not a owner of the company. He was a guy I went to school with that took a hell of a chance to come work for me and took a pay cut to come work with me. Connor's been awesome. If you email or call Meru right now, chances are, and you need any kind of high-level information, you're going to talk to me or Connor. He handles all our wholesale distribution, our driver support. Connor's an awesome guy. If you talk to him, please be nice to him. He's new to racing, but he's learning so fast, and he has been probably one of the best decisions I've made for Meru was bringing a guy like Connor on.
So this thank you letter, all the information, you and Connor's signatures and everything.
Yep.
Okay.
We decided on that. The first batch of braces, the early movers and the early adapters are incredibly important for our long-term health. So just getting off the ground.
This letter is not going to be in every one in the future. Are you saying that?
I don't know.
Okay. So you'll for sure get it now, but later on when it's not a pre-order set up.
I'm not going to guarantee that everybody gets a deal. I know it was the big deal of when we start selling thousands of them, and it's really hard. I know we signed 250 of them, and that was my hand was.
So these are hand signed?
Yeah, no, those are hand signed. If you don't hand sign them, they don't have they're not embossed. They don't have the divot in them.
No, I would have thought it was printed, but I can see now it's a little bit different color. Okay.
Yeah, no.
So props to you on that. I would not have thought to sign 250.
Yeah, I sometimes you get like handwritten letters from companies, and that look handwritten, and I always feel on them to see if it has them, they're embossed, like if you actually wrote it with pen.
Did you notice as you went along your signature changed?
Yes, and and Connor, I grew up racing and I motorcycles and the race cars. So I've been practicing my signature since I was in like second grade. I was bound and determined somebody was going to want my signature very early on, and it wasn't until I was in my 20s before anybody actually asked. Connor didn't grow up racing, so he started signing his signature. He's only signed it on like official paperwork and stuff like that.
Well, and we're not really from an age anymore where you sign a bunch of checks and stuff.
Well, and so he goes and he's like, "Oh, yours looks good. Mine looks terrible." And he's like, "Okay, it's getting better. It's getting better."
He's developed his signature as he's doing this.
He took a break like halfway through, and he's like, "I feel like my signature is getting better."
Okay.
And by the end, he's like, "Okay, those are good." So then he wanted the pages off the top to go in the first set of braces, so they looked good.
All right, and then sticker sheet.
Yeah, everybody likes stickers, and it never seems like you have the right size sticker. Okay. So we went with slightly different sizes, and you want something to go on a white or black.
You've got some options.
Yeah, you got some options there, and fun little app.
So I personally have not been to Baja to a race, but I've only heard stories and seen it on video. All the kids down there, they want stickers, and the stickers can be, from what I understand, used as currency. Like if you need something, like sometimes they want the stickers bad enough for like if you need fuel, like hey, here's some stickers, and you might end up with some fuel or some help.
There's also you talking about little kids in Mexico about this or Baja. I'm pretty sure when we were at PRI this year, there were some old guys that would have traded for some stickers too. We went through so many stickers at PRI. It made me feel really good about our logo because the guys that were next to us, they had stickers out too, and they had the same group of stickers out on their table all week, and they got most of the way picked through by the end of the week. we were having to restock our table like every like 2 hours. So we gave out like 2,000 stickers at PRI.
So let's lift it out now.
Yes.
And
that's where the magic happens.
So I am by no means like a connoisseur of any of this. I know enough to make myself sound smart or stupid depending on certain situations.
You know enough to be dangerous.
The weave on the carbon fiber looks consistent and nice. And I only say that because that's what I always hear people talk about with carbon fiber stuff. Like,
yeah, you don't want it to be squished. You're looking for even lines.
And sometimes you're going to in certain spots. I get it, but like especially the flat spots, you don't want to see it all like junky.
Well, these are compression molds, so especially when you have any contours, you're going to have some bit of squish in it. But for the most part, on those big long pieces, you get a nice consistent weave.
So is the shock covered to protect the shock?
So that was actually a request from the IndyCar series. The reason they wanted that cover was to act as a burst shield. If a shock ever exploded, pulled one apart, had any issues, they wanted it to be covered. Originally, we just had a hoop. And so IndyCar was asking for us to make a plate specifically for IndyCar to act as a burst shield, and we decided, well, if IndyCar wants this is something we should look at anyways, and we just made it a part of the brace. We made the front piece is permanent installed, the front plate's permanent, and then the back plate pops off, so you can
this
change.
Piece right here.
Yep.
Okay.
It made it so we can our tethers are retained, and your tethers can't fall out as long as the plate's in. But if you ever need to swap tethers, you just pull the plate off, and you can pull it set out. Also, you can pull the plate off to look at the shock, make sure if you ever had any leaks or anything, as with any piece of safety equipment, you need to pay attention. You need to look at it. If you do ever have any kind of oil leak, any kind of issue, we have if you send us a brace, you pay the shipping, and we offer free inspection. Whether you have a leak, you have a big crash, anything like that. If it's the inspection's free. If we have to change anything, swap anything out after a crash, you're just paying parts. We're not charging labor. That service side is not a money maker for us, and we don't want it to be. We actually really want you to send braces back in as frequently as possible.
Well, it also gives you information on how they're doing. Right?
Yeah, we want a finger on the pulse of what's going on. So I know we've been approached. A bunch of our dealers have asked if they can do recertification for us, and if they can do that. Ultimately, they're looking for it as a little bit of a money
maker. And by recertification, tell everybody what you mean.
So most time for recertification, you'll get a new SFI sticker.
Okay. With like harnesses, they've got dates on them, and usually it's new harnesses because it's the webbing that goes bad, and it doesn't really make sense financially to have your seat belts re-webbed.
Yeah.
Because you might as well just buy a whole new set of belts. Yeah.
On these, it makes sense, especially with ours. We have a lot of fusible links, and we've got a lot of bend, crack, stuff like that in a big impact that you can pull off, bolt a new one on, and you don't have to replace the whole brace.
Okay.
The shock and the collar are the two strongest pieces. Everything else.
Collar right here.
Yeah, right? The collar and then the shock.
Shock that's right there.
Yeah.
You can barely see the bottom of it.
The shock mounts, the shock pins, all that stuff at a certain point is designed to bend, because what we don't want is to break.
Actually fail.
Yeah, break.
You want it to yield, not break.
Exactly. But because of that, if you have a big impact, you might have some stuff that's bent up. The nice part is, send it in. We'll swap out what's bent. We'll put a new certification sticker on it, and we'll get it back to you. And for a couple $100, you have a brand new brace instead of having to spend another $1,200 on a new one. And we're the only company out there that has parts you can replace after a big impact. The rest of them, is it cracked or not?
So in this case, and what you're saying is, if everything needs to be replaced, but say the collar, it's the same price?
No, we'll have a parts list for a shock pin will be worth this much.
Okay.
a shock mount is worth
So
X.
the more you have to replace, the more you have to pay, but you're still not paying full price again, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And the only thing where we would scrap a brace is if you hurt a collar. If you hurt the collar, then that one's dead, and
If that happens, somebody's in a horrible wreck. This works as it's intended, but it's no longer reusable. Is there a rebuy program or a new purchase program for them, for a customer that they love this, they want this, the rebuild program didn't work, recertification program didn't work, are they back in at a full price, or do they get a discount on the next one or anything like that?
That's always going to be a case-by-case deal. But ultimately, if you crash hard enough to hurt that brace, especially if you hurt the collar, and it's too far gone for us to replacement parts, then we feel we did our job. Because without it, you're going to be in bad shape.
From what I understand of your test results, that would be quite the impact.
Yeah, I mean, at 70 Gs, you could have at 70 G impact, you could have recrashed them.
And 70 Gs is, so every G is 1 times your own body weight, correct?
Yeah.
So if you're a 200-pound man, that's 70 times 200, correct?
Correct.
That's a lot of force.
Yes, it is. Like I said, we could have recrashed those braces and recertified those braces. So if you crashed hard enough to break one, then we feel we've done our job.
Okay.
And you should theoretically be happy you were wearing it and be okay buying a new one.
I do not disagree, because I didn't think about the numbers until you said that. Like 70 Gs, like that is a astronomical number. That would be what, 100, if you're a 200-pound man, 140,000 pounds of force. I think if my math's right.
We're, for the most part, when we're dealing with the deal, we're basing it off an 11-pound head.
Oh, okay.
With helmet.
Okay, so G of that.
Yep.
But still, that's a lot of force on your neck.
Yeah, so we've tested this. We built a fixture at our shop to test at 2,800 pounds. And we've hit this at 2,800 pounds 100 times in a row. And just boom, boom, boom.
Anything fail or bend?
No fit. We bent the upper shock mount and the lower shock, the upper shock pin and the lower shock
But
mount.
replaceable parts.
Replaceable parts. And nothing failed after that many revolutions. That was specifically, we have a test we have to do to clear FIA certification, which FIA is currently suspended all new applications for braces until June. But there was stuff we were just preparing for FIA.
Are they overwhelmed by everybody trying to develop stuff to follow you?
No, they are currently, I wish. They are reviewing their current testing standards and procedures. They have a big meeting on May 31st to go over all those, and then they'll reopen deals. If we had something that would have worked for the same test that they did for Hans or the same test they did for hybrid, we could have tested with them, because they have a specific test for Hans and a specific test for hybrid.
But this is not the same neck restraint.
No, it's not same.
This is not the same. You're not using the same. How do I say? Restraint system. Like you've changed the game. Honestly, because nobody else's moves, right?
Nope.
So you can't test this the same way you do the others, right?
No, I mean you can,
but
we did with SFI.
But are you going to show what it can really do?
No, and SFI has one test for everybody. FIA has a much different procedure, and but for the same reason, when they approved the hybrid, they couldn't do the exact same tests as the Hans and show it. Okay. So when FIA, the FIA has one standard for Hans.
And FIA is a little bit stricter, right, or more in depth.
Yeah,
they also cover the entire world, where SFI is mainly United States.
Yeah, and
North America.
They have a set of procedures and testing procedures you have to accomplish, and then they have a committee. So it's not just numbers on a sheet. They can still approve or deny you based off of an opinion. And so you really have to win them over. The good news is right now, specifically for head and neck restraints, they only have a few board members that are voting board members, and one of those is Dr. Terry Trammell from the Racin NTT Data IndyCar series.
Whatever the name
IndyCar series, yeah. He's the lead doctor for their series, and he is a voting member on that board, and we've worked with him very closely throughout the development. So, we feel like we have a leg up because we already have been working with Trammell so much. So we think we can, once FIA opens up, we think we can get through there fairly quickly. We have several IndyCar drivers and WeatherTech sports car. Those guys want to use it, and they're not allowed to right now.
Because it has to have FIA. S5 doesn't work.
Yeah,
because they travel and they race in more than just the United States.
It's just each series has specific standards. It's not necessarily as like SFI's just US and FIA's everywhere else, because there's places in Australia, New Zealand that will accept SFI. Okay. And then there's in South America that are based off of SFI. For the most part, FIA is on the world stage, but there is specifically IMSA and IndyCar require FIA certification. Okay. NASCAR is a whole different deal because they require SFI and then NASCAR approval, and NASCAR has their own independent board who's unbiased board that reviews it and goes through their own procedures. So we've submitted a brace to NASCAR. We're waiting to submit for FIA, and so that's.
So you've got some stuff in the works. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Any future products you might have in the works that you can expand on?
We're looking at all the different hard points that your body touches in the race car. It's not necessarily like suits or any of the soft stuff, but braces, helmets, seats. Okay. We haven't necessarily committed to any one product, but we're considering and looking at all of them, all with trying to carry the common idea of energy absorption and suspension systems. What we're doing with the shock, can we go do this with a helmet? Can we do this with seats? If so, awesome. But we don't want to make Me Too products. We don't want to just be doing something that, just adding another thing to our deal to pair, and just, I think, Ford has done this to where they were making every different type of car. And
you could also have any color you wanted as long as it was black, from what I remember.
Yeah,
seriously, from what I hear, when the Model T came out, Henry Ford told everybody, you can have any color you want as long as it's black.
Yeah. Well, but if you look at the, I think it was like into the late 2000s, Ford had started this whole deal where they were making all these different types of cars, and they had totally, during the crash, everything was sideways, and they had one brilliant CEO come in and said, we're going to scrap most of this. Mm-hmm. We're going to go down, I think it was to 8 models. They went from making, I think, over 100 different models of cars to 8. Same things, Steve Jobs, when he took over Apple, they were making hundreds of different products at Apple, and they took it down to like 4. We're only going to do things we're going to be best at.
You're going to focus on the things that you believe in and that you really want to develop.
If we're not best in class, if we're not the most cutting edge, best technology out there, then we're not going to do it.
I think that's a great segue into closing this out, because you've essentially told about the future of the company. You're only going to do stuff that you're passionate about, that you're going to develop to the best that you can, and if you have to walk in someone else's footsteps and do it the way they want, you're not going to do it.
No, we're racers. We're not a big company trying to this isn't a marketing campaign. This isn't trying to repackage an old product. This is us as racers coming together and trying to make something that's better than anything else out there. That's what we have to do. That's why we all race. And so this is why we do it. We love it, and we're only going to do things we can try and beat people at.
I really appreciate that.
Well, AJ, thank you very much for that in-depth interview and description of what Meru Safety is all about. I do appreciate that. If you guys want to go to, what we're going to do is we're going to put that out, the actually in-depth interview and talk about the neck restraint. We're going to put that out on a separate video as well. That'll be more in-depth because that was like 30 minutes long. You guys.
Well, and there's
you
things
two wouldn't quit talking.
There's things I wanted to cover that I would love to go even further in depth, but to some people that's too much information.
I agree with that. I mean, what do you think, AJ?
I've never been accused of being short-winded. So one of my favorite things is there's this quote that's like, if you need me to do a 5-minute presentation, I need a month to prepare. If I need to do a 10-minute presentation, I need a week to prepare. If you want me to talk for an hour, I can start right now.
I like that.
Well, good, Ben. I appreciate it. And I know all the guys that are watching this podcast are the ones that want to see, because I know that plenty of them wanted to know about Meru, and that whenever I said I got it down, I got AJ down for Meru, and they're like, we really want to see this podcast. So it's going to be really cool to watch how the off-road community, which is somebody new to your realm, is actually going to take it and see it. And I see it going really well, and I see it going well. Your SFI rates, everything that you just talked about in the prior interview, plus our whole podcast, should help them decide what neck restraint is going to save their neck, their back, their
life.
We say we like to call it their squish because everybody forgets about their brain, but you know it. And to be fair, I mean for the most part, it was the neck brace protect your neck and the helmets protect your head. But I felt like we could do a little of both with one device. It's
a one and the same, and it needs to be done. And it needs to be talked about. There's one thing that I always talk about, and I want to do this. And me and Seth have talked about it. My plan is to get racers here with their race cars, and I tell them to bring their suits and give all their safety equipment, strap in, and see how fast they can get out.
I can get out pretty fast. I mean, I guess we can bring the sprint car down here at some point, and we can get out.
I asked you, whenever I first talked to you, and he's like, it's not ready.
Yeah,
which is usually the answer that I get from all the Ultra 4 racers and all the dirt right guys, the old dirt right guys. They're like, their car's not ready.
Well, we should get to a point where like the car's ready to go racing every weekend, and then we can come do it. I'll do it without the wing though, because I've never run wing cars, so it's probably going to take some use to getting in and out.
Oh yeah, because you can't come straight out the top.
Yeah, you can't go out the top. So
that's true.
You either got to go out.
Do that.
Like some guys go behind the wing, go like out the back. Or some guys go out the left side. I'm not sure. We'll see how that goes. But I'll bring the non-wing car down.
We can always come to you where the car is too.
Yeah, I mean, we're local here. Anybody who's in Oklahoma, we're off of I-240 and Sooner here in southeast Oklahoma City. So.
I know where I'm hanging out in the evenings now.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
screw you, Alan. He's got a race car.
The car is there right now, but it's normally not going to be there. We're just we're getting ready to take it to go get it wrapped, and
so that boils down to basically how can anybody listening to this podcast can get a hold of you. You're located off of 240 in Sooner, which unless you're an Okie, you don't know that. So where is your location, and then all your information, man?
Socials, websites, everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
OnlyFans.
We're southwest Oklahoma City here, but we're you can get on our website is meru-safety.com. That's MERU dash.
Is that a forward dash or a backwards dash?
It's like subtraction dash, that kind of dash. Not forward slash. I think slash and dash.
I never understood the slash is the forward and back.
Yeah.
Sorry to break that up, but that's just random.
Meru-safety.
There we go. All right.
All of our social handles on everything is just Meru Safety. My email is aj@meru-safety.com. If anybody wants direct connection, we only, there's only a few of us there. So if you'll talk to somebody important if you give us a call.
How do we get a hold of Connor? Is his Connor?
Yeah. We're really complicated in our emails. We're trying to stay, keep on the DL.
Some crazy code names y'all got going
on. So that's the best way to get a hold of us if you're, trying to call from home. We're working really hard on trying to get as many different races as possible. For the most part, we're staying kind of in this, Oklahoma and bordering states right now.
What events do you have coming up that any of these listeners may be able to see you at?
So we've been working with Pastrana, and he has, obviously the involvement at Mid-America, both in the series and in the facility. And we also have a couple guys like CJ Greaves and on the UTV side, William Lunchbox Thomas, and a couple different guys running them. And so I think we're going to try and get out at least for a day or two to the Memorial Day weekend race up at Mid-America.
At Mid-America and Jay?
Yeah, and then we're trying to figure out the logistics side of it. But definitely have some form of presence at Visions in June.
And that is June 12th through the 18th,
yes,
I believe.
You guys apparently need like week-long events in the middle of summer. And that seems, from what I can see, as a big, long party. So I'll go and work, and my wife will go and have fun.
Well,
but you have to understand.
And his girlfriend...
They go to the pool. That's all that's what's really awesome
and the
about
bathroom.
It.
In groups.
Oh, and the bathroom is amazing.
They just did it here.
Is it?
Oh, they just went to the bathroom in groups? Okay.
Yes.
Is it good?
Them two and the cat all together walked in there.
Have you guys been to Wheatland?
I have not been to Wheatland.
I've seen it on the television.
Because we race midgets and sprint cars at Wheatland, and their bathrooms was the most impressive thing. They got like 18 stalls in the pits bathroom,
and the women still has a line.
And they had like an attendant in the bathroom. I was like, what in the world is this? I'm walking in with my driving suit in between races, and there was a bathroom attendant.
And they're like, do you want me to hold it for you?
And no, it was just by far the weirdest thing. But I keep telling her we need to go to Lucas, and I literally say, I've barely been racing since we've been together, but keep saying we need to go race at Lucas. She'll like that one because the pits are paved, the bathrooms are nice. Her negative feelings towards dirt, for the most part, aside from the racetrack, would be solved at Lucas. So.
Well, and I'm telling you right now, if you take her to Visions, she's going to be spoiled.
Yeah. From what I understand, Mid-America is the nicest off-road park in the country, possibly the world.
Yeah, I mean, it seems super impressive. I know I've been looking at what Travis has been doing there, and I don't know. She's pretty spoiled because she's been going to these IndyCar races, and there's not any dirt there. But I think she always also
drinking
riding
mimosas with somebody holding her umbrella.
I don't know. A week and a half ago, we were riding Vespas through the random side roads in Mexico. So I guess she's pretty brave.
Hey, happy honeymoon, by the way.
Yes,
it's gonna end soon whenever you go to the dirt.
Yes.
It's not even going to the dirt. It's the first time I'm strapped back in a race car. Especially she's watched like 410 wing cars up in in St. Louis up at Peevely, and how fast those cars go, and she has no interest.
Why is that thing hanging off the fence?
Oh yeah, hanging on the fence. Let her wear it. So that's why I own a safety company, so that I can get all that stuff. So once we get in the car, I don't have to worry about it.
There we go.
Well, guys, here we're basically done with this. We've spent about 2.5 hours, something like that. It's been a long time. You guys are both pretty long-winded. I think you guys could have some. You guys could have some really good campfire talks.
Oh, we might have to bring him up to the camp around the campfire up at Nationals, maybe.
No, campfire at Nationals is gonna be in Havasu.
Or
like have a brew.
The race before
yeah,
that.
have a brew. Yeah.
I agree. Sell a cow kid.
The race before that at Disney.
Oh, at Disney? Yeah. No, you're welcome to come to Disney. Come to Disney. It'd be good times.
He doesn't look like I'm invited. He looks like you're more entertained than he is.
Well, Alan's just tired. He works for a living.
Maybe we can just have like a weekly show where we just bullshit on random things.
This is See You Off the Trail.
Yeah.
Okay, the cackling lady's in the background. All right, it's worse than the freaking cats. All right,
I'm here all night.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for hanging out with us. AJ, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's been awesome.
I'll tell you what, Meru Safety needs to come out, and the great thing is that I think this podcast is going to bring it to the off-road community, and I think it's really going to help.
Support local companies,
and we support local companies and stuff that are around us in Oklahoma. And the greatest thing is that we used to watch Ultra 4 racing, and it was in California, and we're like, man, we wish Ultra 4 racing would come to Oklahoma. And
now its home is here.
This is home. It's Oklahoma. So we're gonna put you in the forefront, hopefully, with everything that we're talking about and everything that you showed us tonight. We appreciate it. Guys, my name is Hitch. This is Seth. And this is AJ with Meru Safety saying, see you on the trail.
See ya.
Peace out.